out of these United States. Page 110, the health revolution. Right. America's battle against the great epidemics. The epidemic diseases that afflicted America from the colonial days up through the 19th century were brought to the New World by early colonists from Europe, by slaves from Africa, and also slaves in the West Indies, later by some travelers and settlers from all over the globe. Outstanding epidemics visited upon the Americas were smallpox during the 17th and 18th century, yellow fever during the 18th and 19th century, cholera in the first half of the 19th century, and then a deadly influenza that blazed across the world that struck America in 1918. It affected 20 million people, killing half of this in 7 months. It was unique for its intense savagery, except for the isolated outbreak of bubonic plague, the earliest and more severe of San Francisco's Chinatown in 1900 to 1902. The United States has been spared the diseases, but these diseases have also ravaged Europe. The American Indians were periodically devastated by onslaughts of epidemic diseases that were brought by the Europeans, for which they had no natural immunity. Smallpox epidemics in the 17th century accounted for the dreadful losses amongst the Indians and the whites alike. In the 1633 epidemics that ravaged New England and the area that the Dutch settled, for the century following, smallpox outbreaks occurred all over New England and Charlestown, and in South Carolina. The other settled colonies, especially New York and New Jersey. The Boston epidemic of 1721, and one out of every 7 died. 1,000 people fled the cities, and after a widespread application of Dr. Edward Jenner's vaccine was discovered in 1800s, the smallpox diminished as a major killer. Yellow fever first hit America in 1699 at Charlestown and Philadelphia, until the effective control measures were applied in the early 1900s. As a result of the pioneering research of Dr. Walter Reed and his colleagues, the dreaded yellow jack struck repeatedly in the eastern seaboard with particular virulence against the larger ports. It moved inland as well, and for the most devastating effects in 1878 to 1879, thousands of people died. Many on the interior towns of the Mississippi Valley were ravaged. More than 20,000 people perished in the area between New Orleans and Memphis. Cholera was transported into the United States from Europe in 1832, killing 5,000 New Yorkers that year alone. The disease surged overland as if the waves of westward migration moved, and the ships that were porting in Mississippi and its tributaries. The 4 distinct epidemics of 1832 to 1834, 1849 to 1851, and 1866 to 1873 killed thousands. Although some preemptive measures have lowered the toll of life in the final 2 epidemics, generally cholera ravaged most of the settled areas, intensely on the Mississippi and Ohio Valley. The course of the diseases was extended to the West Coast in 1848 through 1850, with the trek of the 49ers into California. During the Civil War, many lessons learned about quarantine and control, sanitation, and public health were also put into good use and lasting. For the most part of our history, there were few effective safeguards and remedies during peak epidemic periods, but yet whatever their ravages some 200 years, however much of the dread these killer diseases once filled America with, today they have become virtually extinct in the United States. And that again is from page 110. It's called The Health A Revolution. The 3 major epidemic diseases in the United States. Smallpox was 1633 to 1799. Yellow fever was 1699 through 1900s. Cholera, they have listed 1 and cholera 2. 1832 to 1834, 1849 to 1851, and 1866 to 1873. And this is the color of the map. Hey, babies. And these are how those diseases spread and how far they spread. I know, Daddy knew y'all was coming, so I had to hurry up. I was halfway getting dressed. Oh, give me a kiss. Alright, get down. Gotta give your brother a kiss too. He's so jealous. Oh.
David, take your off.
Okay.